An unheralded quarterback that was rated as a 3-star, who had recently transferred from Louisville to the Florida State Seminoles, was never supposed to be that guy, the guy to lead the Seminoles to the promised land. However, in 2023, not only were the Florida State Seminoles undefeated, they were poised to make a legitimate run at the national championship. Then, as fate would have it, in the middle of November, against a lower-tier opponent, tragedy would strike, not only for this young quarterback, but for the entire Florida State Seminole nation. This is the story of how one injury would not only prematurely derail the career of a promising quarterback in Jordan Travis, but it would expose the cracks in the foundation of the Florida State Seminole nation. So in today's video, we're going to dive into the events surrounding Jordan Travis's devastating injury and the events that ensued thereafter, and how it even potentially cost a struggling NFL franchise an opportunity at stability at the starting quarterback position. So if you like this type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe so you'll never miss an episode of College Football Legends. During Jordan Travis's senior year at the Benjamin School out of Palm Beach, Florida, he led his team to a playoff run, and he passed for 2,200 yards, 24 touchdowns, along with rushing for 900 yards with 16 rushing touchdowns, accounting for 40 total touchdowns. Along with his dominance in the passing game, he was named the state of Florida's 3A Offensive Player of the Year. Despite Jordan Travis's accolades at the high school level, he was only ranked 59th overall. Now for context, in this particular recruiting class, it included quarterbacks such as Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, JT Daniels, and Matt Corral. Jordan Travis had multiple offers from programs such as Georgia, Baylor, the University of North Carolina, but ultimately he chose the University of Louisville. During his time with the Cardinals, it was brief and he saw virtually no playing time, as Coach Willie Taggart was leaving the University of Oregon to take the job at Florida State. Jordan Travis hit the transfer portal, taking the leap of faith to compete for the starting job. Unfortunately for Coach Willie Taggart, he only lasted 2 seasons with the Seminoles, and Mike Norvell took over in Tallahassee. This abrupt coaching change for many players in Jordan Travis's situation would spell disaster. However, Jordan Travis continued to work, learn the offensive scheme, and he proved to Coach Mike Norvell and the entire coaching staff that he was poised to lead the Seminoles at quarterback. For the 2021 season, Jordan Travis appeared in 10 games, splitting playing time with Mackenzie Milton, who had recently transferred from Central Florida. Milton was on the verge of a promising career with Central Florida, but he suffered one of the most gruesome leg injuries in college football history, an injury that will foreshadow his teammates Jordan Travis's career as well. Mackenzie Milton would have been a good fit for the Florida State Seminole offense. However, he never fully recovered from that devastating leg injury, and he never returned to form as a dual-threat quarterback. On the other hand, for the young Jordan Travis, although promising, he wasn't 100% ready to take over the starting role for the Florida State Seminoles. Overall, that 2021 season was a complete disaster, as the Seminoles finished an abysmal 5-7, capping it off with a devastating loss to a lower-tier opponent from the FCS, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. This is a loss I actually cover in another video, discussing some of the shocking upsets within college football history, and I will leave a link to that particular video in the description below. Travis took over as the full-time starter for the 2022 campaign. This is where everything came together. The Seminoles had a drastic turnaround, finishing the season 10-3, winning their postseason bowl game against the Oklahoma Sooners. Travis was credited with having 3,200 passing yards, and he accounted for a total of 24 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns, and he even had 2 receiving touchdowns as well. The following year, as the 2023 season began, this was a very interesting year for the Florida State Seminoles in many ways. But for the context of this particular video, this was Florida State's best chance at winning a national championship, since Jameis Winston led them to a Rose Bowl victory 10 years prior. For that 2023 season, the Seminoles went on an epic 11-game winning streak, and Jordan Travis in that particular part of the season had thrown for 2,700 yards with 20 passing touchdowns, and rushed for 7 touchdowns, with a mind-blowing 2 interceptions. Going into the 12th game of the season, Florida State was undefeated and had a dominant Heisman candidate quarterback in Jordan Travis. And for the remaining 2 games against the University of North Alabama, a lower-tier FCS program, and the Florida Gators, who had fallen on hard times, suffering a losing season. All roads were leading to the college football playoff, and it was looking like nothing could go wrong for the Seminoles. In that game against the University of North Alabama, which should have been an easy victory for the Florida State Seminoles, as a tune-up game going into the playoffs, everything would change in the blink of an eye. Not only for Jordan Travis, but for the entire Florida State Seminole nation. Fateful day in November, late in the first quarter against the University of North Alabama, Jordan Travis scrambled for 16 yards, getting a first down. And as he was being tackled by the defender, he used a controversial technique called the hip drop tackle to bring him down. Instantly, Doak Campbell Stadium fell silent, as Jordan Travis lay on the turf grabbing his leg in pain as he was contorted in the wrong direction. Now in this video, I obviously have it blurred out because trust me, this is an injury that you can only watch once. As the training staff rushed to his aid, they knew immediately that this injury would be career-altering for their star quarterback. This particular hip drop tackle causes the defender's body to roll underneath the ball carrier's legs, yielding a high risk for injury. Although it's legal in college football at the making of this video, it has recently been banned by the National Football League as recently as the 2024 season. Hindsight is always 20/20, but you would think in the latter part of the season that you're undefeated and you have a Heisman candidate as a starting quarterback. You would think you would sit him out for at least one game against a lower tier FCS opponent in the University of North Alabama, because more than likely if you're a Power 5 program, your backup quarterback is more than capable of closing out a lower tier opponent, such as the University of North Alabama. Florida State won the game 58-13, and their backup Tate Rodemaker performed adequately to close out the North Alabama Lions. Things were already set into motion as the most epic nosedives as the rocket of the 2023 season was headed to a tragic crash down to earth. The following game, they struggled in a 24-15 win over their hated rivals in the Florida Gators. And their backup Tate Rodemaker suffered a concussion, and he was ruled out for the Atlantic Coast Conference title game. Conference title game against the Louisville Cardinals, with their third-string quarterback in Brock Glenn, Florida State looked completely anemic on offense, with only the emotion of rallying around their injured teammate, and they barely edged the Cardinals 16-6 to win the Atlantic Coast Conference title game. Historically, a Power 5 conference champion that's undefeated is typically a 100% lock for the college football playoff with a legitimate chance of winning the national championship. However, after Jordan Travis's devastating injury, they went from a dynamic offense with a dual-threat quarterback as a team that was down to their third-string quarterback that was anemic on offense and struggled to score points. Matters worse, they had to rely on their slightly above-average defense that was ranked 18th overall in the country. I know what you're thinking. An 18th ranked defense doesn't sound entirely too bad. But for context, when teams such as Duke, SMU, and Troy are ranked higher in that particular category, and you're down to your third-string quarterback, that's a major problem if you have hopes of winning the national championship. The college football playoff selection show was another piece of the puzzle and the domino effect of that 2023 season after Jordan Travis's devastating injury. As the Seminoles watched as they announced that Sunday afternoon after winning the conference championship the previous day. Now, prior to the 2024 playoff, it only consisted of 4 teams. And as Reese Davis of ESPN revealed the picks, they announced Michigan, Washington, Texas, and there was a pause in suspense as he would read the final card. And Reese Davis would read the University of Alabama, and the wind sucked out of the entire room as the Florida State Seminoles were stunned as they were left out of the college football playoff despite an undefeated season. Of course, everybody in that room during that selection show had a right to be upset, including the entire Florida State Seminole fan base. However, looking back on it, I believe everyone knew deep down, when Jordan Travis went down with that devastating injury and he was being carted off the field, their hopes of winning a national championship had also vanished. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee is charged with a difficult task, not only selecting the most deserving teams, but they have to pair up the best matches for a national audience. And with Florida State's performance in the latter part of the season, with Jordan Travis's devastating injury, it didn't appear that they would be able to compete against the top competition within college football. Consolation prize, the Florida State Seminoles were paired to face the Georgia Bulldogs in the Orange Bowl. And the result of that particular game? Well, let's just say Florida State's performance against the Georgia Bulldogs made the committee look like biblical prophets. Some would say Florida State's coaching staff, fan base, and even some players spent more time on social media complaining about the playoff snub than preparing to play Georgia. In addition, several Seminole players, including future NFL players such as Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, and future first-rounder Jared Verse opted out of the game, refusing to play. As a result, the Florida State Seminoles with a depleted roster and down to their third-string quarterback in Brock Glenn against a focused, hard-nosed Georgia Bulldogs as the two-time national champions the previous season handed the Florida State Seminoles a devastating nuclear 63-3 defeat, further reinforcing their inability to compete with some of the elite competition within college football that season. That misery would bleed over into the following 2024 campaign, which is the most recent season at the making of this video. The Seminoles would only win 2 games, barely edging newly joined Cal to the Atlantic Coast Conference, and an FCS opponent in Charleston Southern. As for their star player, Jordan Travis, prior to that tragic injury back in November 18th, 2023, he went from a Heisman candidate to a potential first or second round draft pick to a future of uncertainty. Despite his injury, the New York Jets selected him in the 5th round. And as a cursed NFL franchise who had been starved for stability at the starting quarterback position, and they endured draft busts such as Zach Wilson and Sam Darnold, A healthy Jordan Travis would have been 10 times better with more potential than Zach Wilson, a player that had only one good pro day and faced below average competition while at BYU. In contrast, Jordan Travis would have bought youth and way less baggage than Aaron Rodgers, despite his veteran resume, which did very little to improve the Jets' win-loss record. Despite Jordan Travis's best efforts, his rehab process didn't yield the desired results, and by an expert panel of doctors, he was advised to retire from the game of football. And on his social media page, he left a heartfelt message, walking away from the game he loves, unfortunately never playing a single snap in the National Football League. At the making of this particular video, this is a developing sequence of events, and we want to wish Jordan Travis the best as he closes this particular chapter in his life. He is a quintessential story of what could have been but will never be. He had a spectacular career while at Florida State, despite his abrupt and tragic injury. And sometimes life takes unexpected turns, but overall, we pray and hope that things work out for the best. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of College Football Legends. I want you to tell me your thoughts about this particular topic in the comments section below. And also I want you to hit the like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss an episode of College Football Legends. Until next time.